In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my best leveling builds for each class. All of these builds will not require any legendaries or any respecs. These builds will take you all the way to level 24, and at this point, you'll have access to a lot of legendaries and skill points, which is when you want to start pivoting towards your endgame build. These builds can of course take you beyond this point, but I would highly recommend for you to start transitioning into your endgame set, or at the very least an upgraded one that revolves around some of the legendaries that you already have unlocked. And on that note, I'll be giving away free copies of Diablo 4 throughout the Server Slam weekend, as well as the launch of the game. I've given out about 30 plus copies so far from the previous beta tests, all out of my own pocket, as a special thank you to you guys for supporting my channels. All you have to do is follow me on Twitch and come hang out with me there to have a chance to win. It's a great opportunity for me to get to know you guys personally and answer any other questions that you guys may have in regards to Diablo 4. Few things to go over before diving into each class. Diablo 4 allows you a lot of flexibility, changing skills in and out at very little to no cost in the early game. This allows us an opportunity to try different builds and experience all the skills. I'd encourage all of you guys to try and definitely take advantage of the respec costs as you level up to see all the skills your class has to offer you. With that said, the following builds will take you from level 1 to level 24 and are not accounting for renowned skill points. These builds are designed for maximum efficiency when it comes to actually getting to level 24, not just the performance specifically at 24. There are a ton of builds that become more viable at level 24, even more so at level 25. Final note here, the following builds are designed under the impression no legendaries will be used. The first class we have is Rogue. Our build here will focus on utilizing its superior movement to deal maximum damage via twisting blades. You'll notice a massive leap in damage at level 20 once you unlock Inner Sight, especially for single target encounters. Keep in mind, twisting blades and Inner Sight does require player skill with positioning and movement to realize its full potential. You must be able to take full advantage of your dash, shadow step, and evade rolls to maximize this build's performance. For the first 24 levels, here's the recommended skill path. First, we're going to take Invigorating Strike from the basic skill cluster. Energy regen is one of the biggest walls early game, and Invigorating Strike is tailor-made to help regen. You'll pick up Enhanced Invigorating Strike next for some extra regen bonus, followed by your first core skill, Twisting Blades. Twisting Blades will be the bulk of your damage. It's a melee skill that has a boomerang effect after the first hit, allowing you to hit multiple mobs by lining yourself up in front of the enemies. After taking Twisting Blades, you'll take Enhanced Twisting Blades for 30% extra return damage, Fundamental Invigorating Strike at level 6, where you'll get your vulnerable application, Twisting Blades rank 2, Dash, which will provide you with very good mobility, Shadow Step, which provides even more mobility to roam and clear, Twisting Blades rank 3, Twisting Blades rank 4, Twisting Blades rank 5, Dark Shroud, which will be your first defensive, Advanced Twisting Blades for the cooldown reduction now that we have 3 skills that actually have a cooldown, Enhanced Dark Shroud into countering Dark Shroud at level 16, providing you a very nice 10% crit chance, Exploit for additional passive damage, Shadow Imbuement, which will provide us a big AoE damage boost, 1 point into Shadow Crash to pick up at level 20, consuming shadows, which you'll use to max out at rank 3 for a massive early game energy regen. Then finally, Enhanced Shadow Imbuement, which will give you another big crit rate alongside your Dark Shroud for near dead enemies, and Mixed Shadow Imbuement at level 24 for increased non-physical damage. If Twisting Blades is not your style, the best range skill to take would be Rapid Fire due to its superior single target damage, built-in crit rate, and built-in energy regen. You may decide to replace Invigorating Strike with Puncture, taking it to Fundamental Puncture if you want a full ranged experience. You'll essentially be giving up some energy regen for the range on your basic skill. While Rapid Fire will be your best single target option, it will lack a bit on the AoE side of things until you pick up your Shadow Imbuement. At level 15, be sure to unlock your class mechanic, Combo Points. At level 20, you'll be able to use the second combat stance, Inner Sight, which you'll remain in for this build. Inner Sight is the best choice and will significantly improve clear speeds and single target damage. Next, we have Barbarian. The best build to run here in the early leveling stages will be a bit of a hybrid mix. Our Barb will have some decent mobility utilizing a leap and lunging strike while dealing the majority of its damage in the form of bleeds via rend. Bleed is very strong early game, and focusing on this form of damage allows Barbs to have higher uptime on their DPS, considering how much time they'll have to spend dodging mechs in the early boss encounters. Lastly, our build will also consist of some thorns, furthering its defenses and damage output. I want to give a special shout out to Kat, who's an actual pro speedrunner that designed this build and was able to clear the entire Act 1 campaign during the beta test on Barbarian in under 50 minutes with it. While speedrunning is indeed an entirely different thing, I wanted to add some additional perspective here in regards to this build. For the first 24 levels, here's the recommended skill path. First, we're going to take Lunging Strike and Enhanced Lunging Strike from the basic skill cluster. Lunging provides a fantastic gap closer, deals some pretty decent opening damage in the early game, and even provides a small heal. At level 4, you'll unlock your first core skill, which will be Rend. Rend is a bleed focused attack that has a pretty large hitbox, allowing you to cleave multiple targets in one swing. Upgrading your Rend will increase its bleed damage almost 10% per skill point. Because of this, we're going to immediately max this out to rank 5. Upon hitting level 9, you'll take Rallying Cry for the increased movement speed and resource regeneration buffs, Enhanced Rallying Cry for extra immunity to CC, Tactical Rallying Cry for additional resource generation and fury, Outburst for some additional thorn damage, Leap for mobility, of course, Outburst, rank 2 out of 3, Tough as Nails for additional thorns and bleed, all the way to level 17, maxing that out. Steel Grasp, which provides a pull, but mainly for enhanced Steel Grasp at level 19, which will be your vulnerable application. At level 20, Enhanced Rend will be taken next to extend your vulnerable status. At level 21, Violent Rend, which deals extra damage to those vulnerable targets. Then you're going to finish Outburst rank 3 at level 22, and finishing off your last 2 levels with Imposing Presence for additional health. An alternative to this build would be a more thorn focused one, where you'll replace your Lunging Strike with Flay, taking it all the way to Combat Flay, which will give you additional thorns and a non-guaranteed vulnerable application. You'll also have to drop Steel Grasp and Imposing Presence to pick up Challenging Shout all the way to Strategic Challenging Shout for the additional thorns. Whichever build you choose, both will benefit greatly from the Weak Iron Barb Elixir, more commonly known as the Experienced Thorn Elixir, which will provide you with additional thorn damage as well as a small experience buff. You can craft this at the Alchemist in Kjovishad. Necromancer's leveling build will be the easiest and most straightforward of all classes. This super simple build is extremely strong early game due to its minions and of course Corpse Explosion. Our Necro build will focus on clearing packs via Corpse Explosion while finishing off any tankier single target elites or bosses via Bone Spear. Necro's lack of mobility is also factoring into this build. For the first 24 levels, here's the recommended skill path. First, we take Reap into Enhanced Reap, which works as a melee resource generator that provides some nice damage reduction and attack speed. This basic skill is mainly taken for Acolyte's Reap though at level 7, which we'll talk about shortly. After unlocking your core skills at level 4, you'll take Bone Spear all the way to Supernatural Bone Spear at level 6. Bone Spear gives us solid range damage that has a guaranteed vulnerable application and decent AoE cleave. Bone Spear, along with our minions, will be our main source of single target damage for encounters that don't provide us with many corpses. As mentioned earlier, at level 7, we'll take Acolyte's Reap. This provides us with a guaranteed corpse when we open on a new pack, allowing us to instantly Corpse Explosion, which will be the next skill that we take at level 8. From here, you'll take Enhanced Corpse Explosion into Plagued Corpse Explosion, further juicing your Corpse Explosions. At level 11, Skeletal Warrior Mastery all the way to max for increased damage from your minions. Level 12, Skeletal Warrior Mastery rank 2, Skeletal Warrior Mastery rank 3, then Bone Spear to rank 2, Skeletal Mage Mastery at level 15, since you will now have access to raising additional Skeletal Mages, We're maxing this out 3 out of 3. Back to Bone Spear at level 18, this time maxing it out to level 20, followed by Corpse Explosion at level 21, maxing it out all the way to level 24. You can choose to take Blood Mist all the way to Ghastly Blood Mist if you're playing hardcore, or if you just need extra survivability over the last 3 points of Corpse Explosion. The reason we invest into Corpse Explosion later is because it's mainly used for dungeon clears, and it will still clear extremely well even at a low base level. Minion and Bone Spear damage are prioritized in points invested due to the single target damage demand of this build. Druids absolutely scale much better in the late game once unlocking more of their legendary effects. However, in the early game, their options are a bit more limited, especially due to their poor resource generation. The most effective build for Druid at this moment in time is the Landslide Zookeeping build, which focuses on a mixture of damage from your core skill Landslide and your 3 companion pet abilities. You'll build up an additional resource called Terramotes by immobilizing your targets, which will effectively juice your Landslide, giving it a guaranteed crit with additional crit damage. All this while having companions deal both passive and active damage, and even providing you more benefits to your Landslide. For the first 24 levels, here is the recommended skill path. Since this build revolves around minor buildups, you'll take Storm Strike as your first basic skill, which will provide you a vulnerable application as well as immobilization. Take Enhanced Storm Strike next, then pick up Landslide as your core skill at level 4. At level 5, we go back to the basic skill cluster and pick up Fierce Storm Strike first for the vulnerable application. Then once again back to the core skill cluster by picking up Enhanced Landslide, which will allow Landslide to immobilize every 4th attack at level 6. Next, we take Primal Landslide, which will give us access to the Terramote system. As mentioned earlier, this will allow us to build stacks of Terramote every time we immobilize an enemy. 1 stack of Terramote will cause a single Landslide to become a guaranteed crit with increased crit damage on 1 enemy. From level 8 to 11, we're going to pump all of our points into Landslide. Not only is this our biggest damage dealer, but Landslide also provides us with a whopping 11% increased damage for every rank. From here, you'll take Earthen Bulwark for your only defensive, Vine Creeper as your first companion at level 13. This companion is taken mainly for its big AoE immobilize, giving us a huge boost to our Terramote stacking ability. Wolves at level 14 all the way to Brutal Wolves at level 16, further increasing our damage output both passively and actively. Ravens next for more of the same non-spirit consuming passive and active damage. Call of the Wild is then maxed out to rank 3 for a big 30% damage boost for all 3 of your companions. Heart of the Wild is next, which is back in the core skill cluster, taken mainly to give us access to Wild Impulses, which we max out, giving us a big 30% damage buff on our Landslide when maxed. There is some play with Ravens and Earthen Bulwark. If you want more survivability for whatever reason, maybe you're playing hardcore or you want to just be more conservative, you can choose to replace Ravens with Bloodhowl for an extra on-demand heal. If you want to go full juice, you can choose to replace Earthen Bulwark for Trample, giving you a tiny bit more mobility and spirit regen, or Boulder for extra clear potential on trash packs. Managing Spirit and Terramotes will vastly improve the performance of this build. Final note, when it comes to the class mechanic of Druid, you will have access to 1 boon from each spirit after farming enough spirit offerings. This unlocks at level 15 and is highly recommended to pick up as soon as you can. You'll begin to have options once the second tier unlocks at level 25. Prioritize getting Obsidian Slam from Snake and Prickle Skin from Deer first. Last but certainly not least, the Sorcerer. Widely known to be one of the best early game performers, really there's not much to explain outside of Chain Lightning and Hydra. Chain Lightning being a hard-hitting shock skill that bounces from target to target, and Hydra being a passive summon that's placed at minimal mana cost, dealing insanely high amounts of damage in the early game. All this while maintaining strong defenses. Playing this build itself is super straightforward. For the first 24 levels, here's the recommended skill path. First, we take Arc Lash and Enhanced Arc Lash in the basic skill cluster. On top of the stun Arc Lash provides, this skill hits pretty damn hard. In fact, it's one of the few basic skills you can actually build around to make your primary damage skill. However, in this build, we focus on dealing damage via Chain Lightning, which is the first core skill you'll pick up at level 4. After picking up both Enhanced and Greater Chain Lightning for some more juice, we'll add one more point into Chain Lightning before unlocking the next cluster at level 8, at which point we'll take our first mobility skill, Teleport, followed by Ice Armor, giving us a nice defensive at level 9. Level 10, Enhanced Ice Armor, providing us with some nice early game mana regen. Chain Lightning to rank 4, which will open up the Conjuration cluster, allowing us to learn the all-powerful Hydra and Enhanced Hydra, which will drastically improve our damage output. Reaching level 15 unlocks our class mechanic enchantment slots, so we'll go back to the core skill cluster and pick up Fireball for the purpose of the enchantment slot. This skill will not be on your bar. Fireball will give us added AoE damage upon killing enemies, similar to the Shadow Imbuement for Rogue. Invoked Hydra is next for added crit on our Hydras. Chain Lightning rank 5 then gets finished off. Frost Nova all the way to Mystical Nova, which will provide us with a nice AoE CC, but mainly for the purpose of the vulnerable application with Mystical. Next, we have Align the Elements and Protection at levels 21 and 22, which will provide us with extra survivability before taking Glass Cannon at levels 23 and 24, which will provide us with a 6% damage boost per level, but at the cost of being a bit squishier. Sorcerer's build is pretty straightforward despite a bit more bouncing around in the skill tree. If you get any extra skill points due to the plus rank affixes from your gear, or if you feel like you don't need the extra tankiness, you can take points out of protection and align the elements and finish Glass Cannon and Hydra instead. One final side note here before we round this out: it is possible to equip Fireball or any skill in your enchantment slot if you have it unlocked via gear affix. That wraps up all 5 classes. I hope you guys found that helpful. If you want to stay updated with all my builds, be sure to join our Discord, the 1HP Discord in the description below. I'm going to be posting and updating all my builds there. If you do join, please be sure to say hello, introduce yourself so we can greet you to the community. And one final thing, got a lot of Diablo 4 content coming up for you guys, so be sure to be subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.